Let me talk to you, dummies. It's Eli Drake, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the interactive interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio right here at Wrestling Epicenter. Want everybody to check this one out because it's a great one that's actually a long time in the making. I was trying to get this guy to come on last summer, if not earlier than that, and I kept bugging the head of media relations over at TNA to see if we could make it happen. Never could make it happen. One thing led to another. At one point, he had a gag order, which actually resulted in us being rejected for an interview because he had a gag order on camera. But we finally got him to sit down with us and do this interview, and I think that it turned out pretty darn good. Got to realize with some of these interviews, you're given a time frame, or you're supposed to stay within the time frame. Of course, with a lot of these guys, we could do like we used to do and go about 45 minutes long, but they ask that you keep it around 15 minutes, and that's what we are doing. And I got to tell you, in the old days, I might have struggled with that concept, but I don't anymore, and I think I get the most out of the time. So I hope you guys agree. If you like what you hear, go over to WrestlingEpicenter.com's Facebook page. It's Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter. Give us a follow on Twitter, or give us a subscribe on YouTube. Let everybody know that you're liking what we're doing. And of course, check out our site.
This is Moose, and you're in the Wrestling Epicenter.
The Wrestling Epicenter has been around since 2002, and in that time, all these guests, everybody pictured, has been on our podcast. We're more than just a radio show, though, so check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all your wrestling news and needs.
Hey, everybody, this is Joseph Park, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. On the Newsmaker line with us right now is the Namer of Dummies, GFW superstar Eli Drake. Mr. Drake, are you with us?
Yeah, let me talk to you, everybody. I am here.
Excellent. We're so glad to have you on, man. I just told you off air, and I'll tell you here, I've been trying to get you on for a while. Your character is one of the biggest bright spots on Impact Wrestling on GFW TV right now, and I'm just so glad to have you on. So thank you for agreeing to do this with us.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. And you're humble, too. All right, so we're just removed from this past weekend's house shows in the Northeast at the baseball stadiums. I guess my first question has to be, how did they turn out? How did you like how they turned out for Global Force?
I think it was good. I think it was a lot of fun. I think that it was a litmus test of sorts, just to kind of feel out how people know the product outside of being just in the impact zone, for instance. A lot of times, in the impact zone, it's like we get the same fans for the most part over and over again. There's some people who come in new and fresh, but for the most part, it seems like it's the same crowd. So you start to wonder, how will people react to the product outside of there? And it was actually very good. Everybody was up with everything. They knew everything that was going on. They were familiar. So I think it was a great experience, a great test as far as being in this rebuilding process. And I think it says a lot for us going forward.
I would agree, and it seems like you guys are in that rebuilding process. Do you think that getting outside for TV tapings down the road would be in the cards, so you guys don't have that, maybe that familiar audience that maybe takes it for granted seeing everybody every week?
Man, I think that would be amazing. And the reason I say that is nothing against the Impact Zone fans, but I do think that anything anything that people are given too much or they become too familiar with, it becomes kind of maybe stale to them, or almost in that sense of familiarity breeds contempt. So they almost feel like they're our friends in a certain way. And you notice that a lot of times, actually right now, you're running a show. I'm sure that if you ask your friends to listen to the show, it's a little bit tougher to get them to every time come back and want to listen to your show with some sort of excitement, as opposed to somebody who's never seen it or who rarely gets to see it. You know, if Bruce Springsteen's coming to town or something, you know, maybe they'll get excited for it. Or Kendrick Lamar's coming to town, somebody's going to get excited, they're going to go out, as opposed to, here's my friend, he does a show, one of these times I'm going to catch it. And I think that's just kind of what it feels like in the Impact Zone. I think it would greatly benefit us as performers and just as a brand to get out and see different audiences.
I got to tell you, when you guys announced that you were doing this, it reminded me of, I think it was even before your time with Impact, that you guys did some shows in Maryland at baseball stadiums, and the attendance wasn't so great. And I kind of was thinking, the internet's going to try and find a way to drum this up and to kind of beat this company, because for whatever reason, there's a negativity that seems to surround GFW, and it shouldn't. It was definitely more so in the darker days. But my question is, to put this to bed, how would you estimate the attendance? Was it fairly well attended?
I think it was very well attended, actually. I mean, again, we're not packing stadiums, we're not filling stadiums. I think that for now, what we need to do is be humble to a certain degree, where we're working within our means, to where we're not trying to fill a giant stadium. And at the same time, also be willing to take chances to see what we can do, what we can fill. I think that our street team, for instance, right now is above and beyond where it had ever been in the past. One of the guys in particular, Raphael, he is renowned for being very strong as far as promoting and things like that, and just getting everything moving and getting eyes on the product and getting people in seats. So I think that just with having moved around some of the parts in that part of the company, I think is going to help in a big way. And also just having an exciting product as we do, having the different characters and all the different storylines and whatnot going on. People want to see that right in front of their face.
Very cool. Somebody made a call yesterday during one of the GFW weekly teleconferences, and it was a good call because I hadn't really thought about it. And you used the word already. You used the word rebuilding, and that seems to be the focal point of the company right now, is to rebuild the goodwill with the wrestling audience, to rebuild the position that your guys are in the wrestling world. From a guy who came in during some turmoil for the company, how exciting is it for you to be part of this company now, as it seems to be moving upwards and onwards?
Well, I mean, you can see a lot of the relationships kind of being rebuilt in a sense. You know, we've got a good relationship with Noah in Japan, AAA now in Mexico. For instance, now we're doing Spike in the UK. So relationships aren't only being built, but some of them are being rebuilt. You're going to have people who claim to be fans, quote unquote, who are going to be negative. That's normal in anything. I see people complain about every TV show under the sun, so this is no different. Haters gonna hate, as they like to say. But you know, I mean, all it comes down to is just you got to ignore that kind of stuff. Maybe take any kind of the good, real, constructive criticisms, use that, apply it. But other than that, it's just kind of keep moving forward, keep pushing, and you're gonna get where you're going at some point. And I think that's exactly what we're doing.
Very good, very good. One of my favorite segments that you were involved with was the Facts of Life segments. The Facts of Life segments with EC3, and
Fact
you guys
life.
just
Fact
had
of
great.
Life. Fact of Life. That's
Fact of
singular.
Life.
Wait, you're talking
Fact
about
of
a
Life.
1980s TV show? Come on.
Yeah, I could probably sing the theme song, which would just be frightening as hell. So I'm not going to do
Go
that.
ahead.
To you.
I'll stay here for you.
You take the good, you take the. All right, I won't do it. All right. So yeah, you did the Fact of Life segments with EC3. Fantastic stuff. It harkened back to the Piper's Pit stuff, just gold in terms of those interview segments backstage. Thoughts on those segments and working with EC3?
You know, I absolutely love those segments. I thought I was going to hate it at first, something felt campy about having a talk show. I didn't like it. I felt like it cemented me at a certain status, but actually as it started to go, it started to pick up in popularity and it started to get really good. My one small qualm, I think, with the EC3 thing, I really liked it. I just felt like maybe I came on too strong maybe in that one. Especially for where it went, I don't feel like we got enough mileage out of that whole story. Whereas if we could have kept going back and forth, I think just a little bit more, I think it would have meant more. So I feel like it was I think that first segment was really, really good. It came off great. I was just sad into where I was kind of disappointed with where it led into.
Okay.
I think it could have been something bigger.
Very good. Well, your poise, your candor, your timing on the microphone is often compared to The Rock, and you worked with The Rock on a reality show. Was he an inspiration to you in the way that you speak, or is it just kind of a happy accident?
There are 4 men on my Mount Rushmore, if you will, for wrestling, and that's The Rock, that's Steve Austin, that's Hulk Hogan, and that's Ric Flair. Now, if you want to take probably the 3, maybe 4 guys that I would take away from as far as character stuff or little stuff that I'd incorporate, you got The Rock, Steve Austin, a little bit of Flair, and a little bit of Jake the Snake Roberts. There's a little bit of all those guys that I just I'll just pluck a little bit from. But, yeah, I mean, I can definitely tell you there were some times where I was watching The Hero back in 2013, and there'd be a voice come on the screen. You wouldn't see whose face was attached to. Sometimes I'd have a tough time telling between who was The Rock and who was me. But I talk the way I talk, so I can't do much about that. But it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because I've actually heard. Sometimes I get the weirdest comparisons out of nowhere. I've had. Who have I heard? I've heard Jericho. I've heard Shawn Michaels. I've heard Steve Austin. I've heard. Who else? I can't remember his name. Some guy from the 70s, but I forget. But it's always weird that the different, especially if you read in the YouTube comments, which is the worst mistake anybody can make. It's always there's some comparison to somebody where I'm just like, really, that guy?
Yeah, sometimes you just got to say, just ignore it when it comes to internet comments. Just ignore it.
Oh, my God, yeah. Absolutely. I barely even read my Twitter anymore. Just forget about it.
You were involved in one of the more high-profile matches of your career fairly recently at Slammiversary, teaming up with Chris Adonis against D'Angelo Williams and Moose. I guess my question would be, how did you enjoy the media attention that surrounded that match and the match itself?
Oh boy. Well, let's go ahead and just dig right deep in here. I feel like there was a lot of media attention to that match. I feel like there was no media attention to anybody but D'Angelo Williams, which is kind of to be expected a little bit. But then sometimes I'm seeing people talking about D'Angelo Williams, and it's like, there's 3 other guys in this match. This is a great chance for us to get some publicity for the other 3 guys in this match, and not once were those names mentioned on like the bigger stations, whether it be ESPN or whatever. But otherwise, I mean, it was cool to get a little bit of a rub here and there. But man, it would have been great to push a Moose or a Chris Adonis or an Eli Drake, when the ESPN microphones were running or something like that. But
I saw a sports report. I saw a sports report where they were talking about the fact that he was going to be wrestling, and they managed to not even mention the company name.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like it was great to have those images up there, but let's get the other talent in the match over as well, and the company, because that's the whole point of the thing. It's not the D'Angelo Williams show, which he is helping us, and we're helping him, because we're helping him, basically make a dream come true in a sense. He wanted to wrestle, and at the same time, he's helping us get extra press. So let's make that a mutually beneficial thing by mentioning the company, mentioning the other talent in the match. But it seemed like everywhere I turned, it was just D'Angelo Williams is wrestling this unnamed company with 3 unnamed guys. That was a little frustrating. But at the same time, again, the imagery is out there, so it was kind of cool to see those images out there. So there was a little bit of extra attention in that way.
Excellent. Good. On your way to the ring, a couple of weeks ago here on Impact, Josh Matthews said he was going to make a bold prediction and said that you would be Impact Wrestling or GFW World Champion by the end of 2017. Thoughts on that comment?
Goddamn. Well, that's a hell of an endorsement. That would be my hope. I mean, only time will tell. That's the only thing I can say. I mean, that's always what I've been working for. That's always what I've had my eyes on. And I guess that remains to be seen if that'll happen by the end of the year, but it'll definitely happen at some point for sure.
Very cool. Now, just a little bit of a kind of a blast from the past question. Again, we talked about your work this weekend, and one of those guys you worked with was Johnny Mundo, John Morrison, John Hennigan, whatever you want to call him. Obviously, very well known with Lucha Underground. You got Drago appearing on many GFW shows. A former partner of yours is a former guest on our show, and that is Brian Cage. I guess with all these partnerships that GFW is making, how cool would it be to see some of those old faces appear in the GFW locker room?
Well, I mean, anytime you're talking about, cross promotional things or, bringing in new faces, it's always an exciting prospect. At the same time, I almost look around and I'm like, God, we're chock full of talent right now. Like, can we really fit anymore? It's kind of a fine line to walk because you want to use the current talent that you have to the greatest degree that you can and get the most out of them. But at the same time, like you said, it's exciting to have those prospects. I don't think I've worked in the same ring with Brian Cage in probably 5-6 years. We were tag team partners for probably a good solid 3-4 years with Percy Pringle behind us. So,
Yes, sir.
Cool experience, great experience, natural selection. That's the old team name there for Brian Cage and I. But, no, I mean, that's definitely cool. Bring those guys in. You get a little bit of looks coming our way, plus a little bit of looks coming their way with them being in front of a new audience. I think it definitely creates a cool prospect.
Very cool. Couple more questions, and I'll let you get on with your day.
Right.
It's a random question. We have a show here in Arizona called Championship Wrestling from Arizona, and it spans...
Yes, you do.
Yes, we do. And you were on the introduction. Now, I will admit that I'm a little late to the party on it. I only caught it from about the 3rd or 4th episode that it aired on television onwards. I've yet to see you, though, actually appear on the show. Is this something you're going to be part of going forward?
Actually, no. I appeared on probably like the first few episodes here and there. With the way that my contract was in early 2016, I was free to do just about anything. There was a whole thing. I'm going to say it was maybe 2 years ago. Things were a little haywire with where the company was going to be going. So they did an amendment to the contracts, and a lot of things had changed where they freed us up to pretty much be able to do anything that we wanted. Outside of, like, we could wrestle anywhere. So it was kind of freeing in a way. At the same time, it kind of lowered the pay a little bit. But then around June of 2016, I was written a very nice new contract that then kept me from doing other promotions like that. So I can get away with a few indies here and there, but anything that's television broadcast or anything like that, I cannot do. So I won't be on Championship Wrestling in Arizona or Hollywood or any of that anytime soon.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. All right. Now, you mentioned in a GFW or Impact, I think at the time, video that you're very laid back and you're not this natural speaker. And with this interview, maybe you're half on because you are definitely, you sound like Eli Drake. You don't sound like just a calm guy I would talk to. I guess my question would be, have you ever thought about branching out into acting?
I don't sound calm right now.
You do sound
no. Well, I've actually I've done some commercials and some TV shows. I think I did my first commercial probably back in like 2008. It's not that I'm not like. Here's what I was saying is that I'm a natural introvert. So what that means is that I don't go out and outwardly just talk to people like if I'm out on the streets, I don't approach anybody. I very much have blinders on. I'm doing my own thing. If somebody comes to talk to me, I'll talk to them. But like, I'm not the type to just walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, what's going on with you today?" Blah, 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 whatever. But as far as the acting thing is, I have done that. My goal is to continue doing that going forward. I do have a commercial agent out here. It's just very tough to get on the same page just because of the fact that I'm traveling a lot. So as far as going to auditions and then having callbacks and then actually getting the role, it seems like by the time one happens, I'm going to be out of town for the other part. So it's just kind of a tough thing to line up at this point.
All right, so then wrestling is still your primary goal.
Absolutely. But at some point, yeah, we will be parlaying that into more of a, we'll just say less body abusive role.
Let's go with that. Thoughts on going into Destination X and heading forward here into 2017 with Global Force Wrestling? Any goals you have set for yourself, other than, of course, Josh Matthews' prediction?
Well, I mean, that's the one thing I'd touch on is I actually seem to somehow gloss over that prediction. I think somebody mentioned it, though, on Twitter, so who knows, you know, like not my prediction, but my goal at this point is basically just be the biggest star I could possibly be, a household name, and help elevate this company to a level that it hasn't been before, and even to a level that it has been before, but take it beyond that. And to also then become the world champion, be the face of the company, be the guy who is driving the houses, who's driving the whole, basically driving the ship. I want everybody to be on this boat, and I want to be the guy at the helm who's pulling it forward. And that's basically it. I mean, to be that guy and to drive this company's success, those have got to be my goals.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, before I let you go, can I ask for one last favor from you? It's, of course, you probably already know what it's going to be. It's going to be a liner, just saying this is Eli Drake, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Sure.
All right, and I'll count you down, and I'll do the Wayne's World countdown here in 5, 4, 3.
Hold on. Give it to me one more time.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Okay.
Yes, sir. And you can, of course, put whatever spin you'd like on there. All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Let me talk to you, dummies. It's Eli Drake, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter. On Twitter at James Epicenter. And of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hey, this is the King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett, and founder of Global Force Wrestling. And you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.